fuck young boys, Valdez?
I said something nice, not expensive. You wanna be a greedy fucking cow? Huh? I thought I told you to get out of here, old man.
Yeah, old man, old man.
Nice echo. Gorillas have personalities of their own and they just agree with everything you say.
The co-founder and head writer of Rockstar Games has left the company.
What if GTA Plus is just the start of something much, much worse?
Just running GTA Online. They're printing money. At the same time, the company's really evolved and the Rockstar brand has evolved, right? And it is different now to when I was there.
Grand Theft Auto the Trilogy, the definitive edition for current and prior-gen consoles and PC via the Rockstar Games launcher, with the title significantly exceeding our commercial expectations.
There's an attitude among many developers that crunch is a necessary part of any good game development project. There's a quote from an interview with a certain veteran game developer that sums up this attitude. Crunch will always exist in studios that strive for quality.
No, this is basically Rockstar's way of fisting you every month on a monthly sub fee for Grand Theft Auto Online.
When it comes to open world games, there's no company that's as good at making them as Rockstar Games. When you look at the Grand Theft Auto series, the Red Dead series, or the Max Payne series, just for example, only games of the highest quality are published under the Rockstar Games banner. Rockstar Games are astutely aware that when it comes to shipping millions and millions of video game units year after year, that their reputation is crucially important. And when you look at companies such as CD Projekt Red, their reputation was tarnished after a litany of game-breaking bugs, glitches and errors after they released Cyberpunk 2077, prematurely even after years of delays. But for them, their reputation for some of their older titles, such as The Witcher 3, which is considered one of the best games ever made and one of the games of the highest quality ever made, was untarnished, simply due to the quality of the title that they released at the time. In the modern era of social media, where video game journalists are everywhere and video games get constant media attention, whether it's good or bad, means that people have short memories. People are able to separate the company from the game. So when Rockstar decided to remaster Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City and San Andreas, people were absolutely ecstatic. I was ecstatic. A publisher of Rockstar's quality who haven't missed the mark since the Italian Job back in 2001 were remastering some people's favourite games in 4K and 60 FPS. 2 decades of sheer quality with good to phenomenal reviews. As we know, things did not pan out well for Rockstar here. The trilogy sold incredibly well, but all 3 games were full of bugs, graphical issues, rendering errors, control issues, and a myriad of other problems. People on PC were unable to play the trilogy altogether, as the Rockstar launcher was actually taken down by Rockstar Games because the game was so buggy, and the game was actually pulled from being sold altogether before eventually re-emerging a few days later with a fix update attached to it. Speaking of the Rockstar launcher, we will go into more detail on that later because, oh boy, I hate the launcher. Back to the point. Rockstar banked on their reputation to ship copies of this definitive edition trilogy.
More puzzling than definitive.
Of some of the most beloved games of all time, let alone just the Grand Theft Auto series. This was not up to standard for a company the size of Rockstar, and it's clearly evident because you don't even need to play more than the first 60 seconds of San Andreas to realize this was not up to standard. It's crazy for a company like Rockstar to have such a quality control issue like this. So Take-Two, the parent company of Rockstar Games, actually had an investors call recently this year where they discussed the definitive edition,
although not definitive,
trilogy. The CEO of Take-Two said, with regards to the GTA trilogy, that actually was not a new title. That was a remaster of pre-existing titles. We did have a glitch in the beginning. That glitch was resolved, and the title has done just great for the company. He downplayed the problem. He just completely downplayed the problem. He downplayed the scale of the problem. As of February 2022, they shipped 10 million copies of the trilogy. So this was an indisputable success for Rockstar and for Take-Two, which leads us back around to their reputation again. Rockstar, as we know, have a great reputation for making incredible video games. They don't miss the mark until they did. And when they did, they half-assed their response/apology and then told everybody that the game only had a glitch when we all know the game was literally broken. It was so broken you couldn't even launch it. I'm not abusing Rockstar here. I'm stating facts. They used their reputation to sell a game they knew was not ready and was not up to standard. This was a pure money grab. This, sadly, is a reflection on modern gaming in general. There's a term in gaming called going gold. What going gold means is that the game is fully complete, it's ready to be shipped, it's ready to be put onto a disc. Once it's put onto a disc, it's irreversible. So, irreversible, it means the game is done. You have to keep in mind that before the modern era of gaming, like 2010s, 2020s, games didn't get title updates. They didn't get any bug fixes, they didn't get anything. The game you got on the disc was the full game. There was no real DLC for games. Due to this, you more than likely got a completed game with not a lot of bugs, or if it did have bugs, it wasn't a game-breaking bug, it wasn't an immersion-breaking bug, really. There are some exceptions, of course. But the games were vetted and vigorously quality tested before going gold, so you didn't really get any of these issues. Hence why the old Grand Theft Auto games, the trilogy, weren't really broken on release. Nowadays, games release in alpha, beta, Charlie, I don't know. The games are released when they're not even fully playable. Like, for example, Call of Duty Warzone takes up, I think, 110 gigabytes of my Xbox, and every time they release a major update, there's just 5 updates following that major update, and it takes up another 10 gigs of my Xbox. Publishers and developers are under such pressure from board members and stockholders and stakeholders. They push out games far too soon and prematurely just to get an influx of cash. Modern gaming is a host of cheap shots where developers and publishers would try to take advantage of you. The GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition,
But this isn't definitive.
and Cyberpunk 2077
In 2077, what makes someone a criminal? Getting caught.
are good examples of this. The thing about Rockstar that's so unique is their awareness to the market, their awareness to the media, to news, to fans. They're aware of what's going on. So, as I previously said, Rockstar Games are astutely aware that their reputation is crucially important to ship millions and millions of video game units year after year. They're aware of this. They know what's going on. They understand how important quality is. All of their games are innovative. They push the envelope in terms of storytelling, in terms of game mechanics, in terms of graphical elements. They just push the envelope in general. They're always looking to do the next big thing. For example, they just trademarked some new AI thing where AI in games are going to have their own specific routines, kind of what Cyberpunk 2077 wanted, except Take-Two can definitely pull it off. They're always pushing the envelope. They know how good they are. Look at a game such as Red Dead Redemption 2, which was in development for over 8 years. It is so evident it was in development for over 8 years. The game is the best game I've ever played. And a disclaimer here, Red Dead Redemption 2 is the best game I've ever played. LA Noire is my all-time favourite game, so don't say this is bias. There's no bias here. This isn't a hit piece. Rockstar's new system of taking advantage of people is evident. It deserves to be highlighted. Like that, it doesn't mean they don't or can't release great games, because they do, and they're usually better than everyone else's. But what it means is that like the business practices outside of the actual teams of people and developers making this game is shady as fuck. And it deserves to be highlighted and talked about, because when Rockstar / Take-Two or any other gigantic gaming company or publisher does something, it changes the entire industry. Other companies follow. They follow blindly. Rockstar in theory could release a Max Payne 1 and 2 remaster tomorrow. The game could be broken to shit just like the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition.
That is a definitive no.
They could collect their dough and never release any updates. And they would have made so much money, and the bad press would have faded into obscurity by the time they released the next Grand Theft Auto. Because we all know that the next GTA is going to be a phenomenal game. Because they generally release phenomenal video games. That is a scary precedent that could be set. Take-Two have already partially set that precedent by saying the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition...
Is that definitive?
...basically went off without a hitch, which is not what happened. It just goes to show that the truth is whatever you want it to be when you're a company of that size. And as we said, when it comes to awareness, Rockstar are trendy to the media and to reports. They have denied that crunch time exists within the company and defended their working conditions. This defense comes despite extensive reports that quote developers saying the exact opposite. Dan Houser spoke about crunch time in 2018 before he left Rockstar Games, saying that developers were working 100-hour weeks. That is insane when you think about it. He later walked back on these comments, saying that it was just the writing team working 100-hour weeks for a 3-week period.
But once again, there's extensive evidence to disprove that. As per Kotaku, in the thick of this crunch, Rockstar San Diego began offering laundry service. According to 2 people who worked there, which as another former employee pointed out left some people feeling uncomfortable, they wouldn't even have enough spare time to do their own laundry. I spoke with a former employee for Rockstar Leeds who left the company at some point in the last couple of years that I connected with due to our shared love for Leeds United, who are my football club in England. I wanted to get their direction on where Rockstar was going and the direction that they were taking, because I thought I might be biased. I haven't been, I don't think, unless you want to think that I'm biased against the company, which is weird considering how much I love their games, but whatever. Due to potential legal issues, I had to redact some of the conversation. There's no NDA or anything, but they were fearful of being struck down by the almighty Rockstar Games. And the person in question signed off on everything in this video. This is a transcript, this is not a video call, but this person is confirmed to have worked there for many years. Thank you for speaking with me so late. I'm actually going on holidays tomorrow, but you worked at Rockstar Leeds for many years, until some point in the last couple of years. Could you tell me what your experience was like?
I worked for Rockstar in a few places, not just Leeds, and it was great, honestly. Probably the best time of my life, professionally. They took really good care of us, and it was a good work environment, even if it could get crazy busy at times.
And why did you leave? Was there greener pastures on the other side, or was there another reason?
There's no negative story here, really. I didn't enjoy what I was working on, and I got a job with another company who had a project that I was passionate about. I get bored easily, so even though I was happy, I kept an eye on Indeed and on LinkedIn Jobs.
Look, we'll cut to the chase a bit because I know that we're both short on time. I told you what this video was about, and I would like your opinion on this. So you have GTA, you have Max Payne, you have Red Dead, and they're all fantastic games, and Rockstar's reputation is obviously stellar. But my question for you is, do you think that the company is going in a good direction, or do you think they're going in a bad direction?
That's a loaded question. It's subjective, I suppose. Like, I think the direction they're going in isn't great, and they seem to be going down the road of remasters. So I think that there's a lot of potential there, and look, let's be honest, they're going to keep releasing great games along with the remasters, so I don't think the direction they're going in is bad or anything. I don't really have an opinion on it.
And of course, what we were talking about in the DMs between us, they released the GTA trilogy last year, which was a myriad of messy issues on release, especially on PC. Could I get your thoughts on that?
That was a fucking mess, wasn't it? Haha. And it should have come out better. The work that was done on that wasn't up to standard because they didn't have enough people working on the project. What people also forget is that they outsourced that project. Like, Rockstar didn't have their own people on that project. There was a studio they outsourced it to that did mobile games and did some GTA games on mobile, and that studio developed it for console and PC.
Similarly to a game like LA Noire, though, like, once it has the Rockstar stamp of approval on it and the Rockstar Games branding on it, people think they're getting a quality game when that wasn't the case in this instance. So, like, LA Noire didn't have issues on release and ended up being critically acclaimed, but it had bad development woes, as we know. But when it comes to something like the GTA trilogy, it shouldn't have been messed up in that way.
True. LA Noire has its own issues, though. That's a whole other story.
Fair. Right, so no more softballs. I think the company is taking advantage of people with that trilogy release. It wasn't up to standard. They knew it wasn't up to standard. And the amount of time and resources they're pumping into, like, GTA Online, because of the revenue they obviously make from it, through the Shark cash cards or whatever. They released GTA 5 onto multiple generations of consoles, 3 generations over the last decade. Like, the game was released in 2013, I believe. Do you think that they're taking advantage of people, particularly younger people, who continue to play GTA 5? I don't know many people playing GTA 5 that are older, so maybe I'm jumping the gun there.
I see where you're coming from, yeah. I think there's weight to that, but I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Like, they recently announced the next GTA officially, but it's been in development for ages. Using GTA Online for revenue income isn't a bad thing or scummy in any way, to be honest, because they're releasing a lot of content for it. If people want to spend their money, that's up to them. Not to mention, by the way, that GTA 5 is still one of the most watched games on Twitch and YouTube, which will be a predominantly younger audience, I'd say. I don't think they're taking advantage of anyone, honestly.
But what about neglecting other games such as Red Dead Redemption 2 or Red Dead Online, because GTA is such a cash cow? Like, Red Dead Online has a lot of people playing it and still does, but it has next to no content and hasn't been updated in ages.
Nowhere near GTA though. You have to keep in mind GTA 5 is the best selling game of all time, I think. So when you take that into account, it makes sense that this is priority when they're developing the next GTA as well.
It's not a good enough excuse, but we'll move on anyway, right? So Rockstar are aware that the majority of people playing this game is a younger audience, and they incentivize paying money for additional virtual content in game, much like FIFA, which is a game I play a lot of. Is that not in some way exploitative of children? Because that is the argument GTA or that FIFA gets, and I think it's justified. But GTA is never discussed in that way.
Now that's bingo there, it is. I don't agree with how much they push paid content when they know the majority is children, so I suppose you're right, yeah.
And in terms of crunch time, were you asked to work excessive hours or anything like that?
Not asked, no. Like, some days you'd work until you were finished what you were doing. That could be 6, 7, 8 o'clock, but in the UK you get paid overtime for those hours. I remember seeing a lot of anger about people not getting paid for overtime, but I always got paid overtime. I feel bad for people crunching before going gold and they don't get paid for that.
And my last question, because we're running out of time, I know you only told me you had like 20 minutes. Are Rockstar aware of their impact on the industry whenever they do something? And do you think a precedent was set by the Take-Two CEO when he was talking about the GTA trilogy, saying it went off without a hitch and that the glitch was resolved, or whatever the term was that he said?
Yeah, I would agree with that. The company is so large with such a positive rep that they would need to do some serious things wrong again and again for their reputation to be tarnished. Their reputation was repaired for the trilogy as soon as they said they were working on GTA 6 or whatever. Short memories and all that. They can kind of do whatever they want within reason. I don't think other companies have that lack of accountability. They're aware of their position in the industry.
I ain't got a very big penis. Mine ain't nothing special, but this boy gets the job done.
What you've all been waiting for. Here we go. GTA.
Grand Theft Auto 5.
Nah, I don't care.
And GTA Online.
Here, play Grand Theft Auto for 8 hours.
The holy cash cow of gaming. 3 generations of console sales. 160 million copies sold. And the second best-selling game of all time behind Minecraft. Disclaimer, it's actually sold technically more because they're more expensive. Grand Theft Auto 5 is truly one of the best games of all time, with a ridiculous amount of content and replay value in it. It is also one of the most lucrative games ever made. There's going to be a lot of figures here, so bear with me. In 2020, Grand Theft Auto 5 made over $1 billion in microtransactions after game service providers took their fee. This equates to $2.7 million per day in 2020. And the game still generates $2.5 million per day, as per The Gamer in August of last year. Rockstar allegedly started development on GTA 6 back in April of 2020. It's probably been a little bit longer, according to Kotaku, meaning that the publisher is content with the content it was making for GTA 5 and still is. The fact that GTA took 5 years to make and technology has advanced and people's standards have been raised, you're at least going to be looking at a 2025 release date for the next GTA. If it's any sooner, I would be shocked. Considering the amount of crunch time that Rockstar demand, there is no doubt the game will be quality again. GTA allegedly cost $265 million to make in budget, which makes it more expensive to produce than any movie ever made, as per IBT. It was well worth the budget. Let's break down the figures and I'll show you why. The Grand Theft Auto 5 budget for marketing and making the game was $265 million. Now, excluding DLCs, upgrading the game and other things, we'll add on another 50%. We'll make it $400 million. For the Grand Theft Auto 5 microtransactions, and we're lowballing and we're going from the next gen 2014 release, which as of writing this is 2,717 days of sales. And at 2.5 million per day, which is lowballing it again because that would have been a way higher figure back in 2014, that is 6.792 billion. And then with the game sales themselves, it's estimated, I've estimated these figures myself based on the amount of sales that happened up until about 2017 and then from when the game went on sale the years after. So 4.2 billion plus 900 million, plus 800 million, plus 200 million. And this excludes the free upgrades with PS Plus or whatever. So that equates to $6.1 billion. So we have a 400 million budget. So we're immediately in the red. We get the Grand Theft Auto 5 sales, which are 6.1 billion. We're immediately in the black and in the green. And then we have microtransactions of 6.792 billion, which is more than the game actually sold itself, means that Rockstar have spent 400 million and have made $12.892 billion. This means that Rockstar have made back their money 3,123 times over. If you break that down daily, Grand Theft Auto 5 from Xbox One and the PS4 release, they have made $4.75 million per day. This is gaming's ultimate cash cow, more than Minecraft. GTA has sold less copies than Minecraft, but they outsold them and outdid them in every other metric imaginable, simply because Minecraft's a way cheaper game and it's been around longer and it's on more devices. So it's going to sell more, especially when it's marketed towards children, as opposed to GTA, which isn't marketed towards children, but it is. It is. It's truly astonishing to think of how much money Take-Two and Rockstar Games have actually taken in from this game. Due to this, Take-Two and Rockstar are incredibly profitable. So, for example, they cancelled the game at the end of 2021 that they spent $53 million on and decided just to completely axe it. They just didn't want to deal with the game. They didn't want anything to do with the game. They just decided to cut their losses even though the game wasn't announced and there was no hype because no one knew what the game was. Now, allegedly it was like Bully or it was another open world game. And if they announced it, it would have garnered hype and they would have been able to... Like, I don't get this. And as discussed earlier, Rockstar and Take-Two have now seen the value in remastering or remaking games. They tested this with LA Noire, which I didn't realize was the first remaster that they ever did, like actual like remaster that they marketed. And with LA Noire, it was more of a repackage than a remaster, and PC saw no change at all. There was next to no content added, and it made bank for them. Now, we don't have official figures post remaster release, but we do have the figures before the remaster, which was 7.5 million copies sold. And as I said, while we don't have any figures for post remaster release, we do know that Take-Two CEO called LA Noire quite profitable and a very good IP in recent years. So as of February 2022, they teased an LA Noire sequel and also a Max Payne sequel. Max Payne 4 is what people were thinking at the time. Since then, Max Payne 1 and 2 have had remakes confirmed. And with LA Noire already getting a remaster back in 2017, this opens the door to a sequel for the latter. But that's beside the point. With LA Noire's remaster release in 2017 and the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition release in 2021, and with the Max Payne remakes coming up, Rockstar and Take-Two are seeing easy moneymakers here, as they're committing a relatively small amount of money to these projects and they're going to make bank off of them. The Max Payne games are a remake, so they're going to be a bit more expensive, but it's still going to make bank for them. The remake deal may have come to fruition as Rockstar was dealing with bad press for the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition. So maybe that's why the Max Payne developers wanted to do remakes instead. Either way, Rockstar and Take-Two are seeing old successes as new successes financially. And just so you know, I'm not against remasters or remakes in any way. Mafia shows just how good a remake can be, but I am against remasters or remake releases that are clearly just money grabs and they're broken beyond belief. Take-Two would rather cancel sequels or new games in favor of releasing remasters and remakes. This is a fact. They just cancelled a $53 million game. Cut their losses. I'm against that so much because it doesn't innovate or push the envelope anymore. And alongside this, don't forget that Take-Two have sued modders for modding GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, GTA 4, GTA 5 for reverse engineering their games. So they just issue cease and desist notices to these people and said, hey, if you don't take down your mod, we are going to sue the shit out of you. They actively tried to take down and sue projects that in any way impacts their vision of the game or impacts sales of the game in any way. I do understand that, but you have to keep in mind that the projects they're releasing usually are free. These people aren't making any money off of this. Now, as I said, Rockstar claim that some mods and some of these modders reverse engineer their game, which breaches their copyright, and they're well within their rights to be thinking that and to argue that because the game is their copyright, it is their property, but they're threatening people. But this is hypocritical as Rockstar have a history themselves of being taken to court for stealing likenesses and breaching copyrights themselves. And finally, the Rockstar launcher. The Rockstar launcher is greed beyond greed. They have broken the majority of older games by introducing this launcher. And these games, which were made without the Rockstar launcher in mind, the Social Club was there, sure, but without the Rockstar launcher in mind, are now getting bi-weekly or monthly updates of at least 150 megabytes constantly. A lot of people need to put modded text files into folders to get their games to launch, me included. That was not the case before this goddamn launcher. They've introduced this launcher as an always-on DRM, which means that to play your games, you need to be logged in to the Rockstar launcher and you need to be online at all times, otherwise you cannot play the game. They did this to stop piracy, but what they don't understand is Modders and people who release pirated games can get around this very easily. All it does is introduce issues and a hurdle for the average gamer to jump over. These games that you bought are no longer your property with an always-on DRM. Once the servers are taken offline, you cannot access that game. If your internet is down for the day, you cannot access that game. LA Noire, my all-time favorite game, as I said, has no online features whatsoever. None. Zero. There's no point even having your internet connected when you play that game. But the game literally cannot fucking launch without an internet connection now. This means that your game is playable through a door that can be shut at any stage, even though you've paid for it. It is greed beyond greed.
Fica nessa parede, seu americano de merda! Que porra tá acontecendo aqui? Que merda tá acontecendo aqui?
Haven't you figured out I don't speak your fucking language?
Seu gringo...
Like their game engine, this list is all the rage. The echo of Rockstar Games lingers throughout gaming. Their practices, their games, their quality, their issues all extend to other people and companies. They also echo themselves. They have set a precedent in gaming for the way that they handled issues and the way that Take-Two's CEO dismissed the GTA Trilogy issues. The way that they sue modders and people wanting better for the games that they love. The way that they have an always-on DRM on PC so you can't play the games that you own. The way that they'll cancel projects instead of supporting them. The way that they demand excessive crunch time for their staff. And the way that their HR team dismissed sexual assault claims against an executive. Rockstar is a myriad of problems and they're not alone. Their development teams deserve all of the credit for the phenomenal games that they put out. They deserve all the credit for making masterpieces time and time and time and time again. And those pieces of art will last a lifetime. The point of this video is to highlight how we as beasts feed this machine. We enable this type of behavior. Here's my 2 cents. Don't pre-order the next GTA. Don't pre-order anything, not even for the bonuses. Wait for the reviews, wait until release. Pre-orders used to be good because there was an incentive, you did get something, and I'm sure in the next GTA they will offer you maybe some money in game. But now it's just to get as much money as possible, and you don't actually know what the game is like. Cyberpunk, Call of Duty, the GTA Trilogy all prove this. I will more than likely buy the next Grand Theft Auto. I'll more than likely buy the next Red Dead game. I hope there's an LA Noire sequel, either direct or spiritual. But don't enable terrible behavior by handing over your cash for something that might not work. Don't mindlessly buy something out of excitement. Just wait until release and see what people say. And I'm an impulsive person. But this is something that I'm trying to fix about myself. I get overly excited. I dive head in to the majority of projects that I'm interested in. But we as gamers have this tendency to dive in unconditionally and part way with a lot of money just because we're excited about something. So what now? How do we address this issue before it gets out of hand? It's almost an impossible situation to navigate because Take-Two are a publicly traded company. That means that unlike a private company where there could be one person who spearheads the movement and direction of the company, kind of like Linus Sebastian for LTT, it means that there are people they need to make happy. They're shareholders who only care about that dollar. The echo of Rockstar's direction under Take-Two is heard throughout the gaming industry, especially when lead writer Dan Houser left the company in 2018. Dan Houser was responsible for leading the writing on some of your favourite games such as the Max Payne series or Red Dead Redemption, but he also helped write all of the GTA series and was also a lead writer for some of it as well. And he's also a founder of Rockstar Games, and now he's left the company. Dan Houser has now started a totally different company, and he's left his brother, who is the other co-founder, at Rockstar. We don't know exactly why he left because he would never say that. His brother still works there at the company he co-founded, and he obviously has a lot of respect for and also made a lot of money from. But we know from reports that he took a leave of absence because he was unhappy sometime before leaving the company altogether. Take-Two were incredibly unhappy with him leaving the company, and their stock dipped significantly. So whatever happened, whatever the reason, it made huge waves. I truly do believe the next Grand Theft Auto will be a masterpiece once again. And I truly believe we are starting to see the decline of a company who have been in their prime for their entire lifetime. To be in your prime, you have to not be in your prime at some point. The next Grand Theft Auto is going to be another unprecedented success. They're going to make back their money 3,000 times again, just like they did with GTA 5. And Take-Two will stand firm in their decisions regarding Rockstar Games. As long as the cash keeps flowing in, you're going to see this company become more and more lifeless and more people leave. At the end of the day, money talks.